So continuing this series about the NLP training, I'm going to give you another glimpse into some of the things that we'll cover, and we're going to talk about a very touchy and very complex subject for a lot of people, nuanced subject, and that's influence and manipulation. And here's a few things I want you to be sure of. One of the reasons people can't just buy the course from me is I want to do a spiritual integrity check with them. Why do they want to know about these tools of influences? But also, here's the thing people don't realize. You're being manipulated, and you are manipulating people all the time without actually realizing it. And whether that's commercial television, or whether that's your friends, or whether that's you jibing your friends into, hey, come on. Like, we're actually influencing each other all the time. And so first, becoming aware of that, becoming conscious of that in very specific ways, and then learning to not do that is actually really the next level in terms of this skill. And also, if you have been enrolled by a client to influence them for their own outcomes, you want to ethically manipulate them, ethically influence them. Ethically means with their permission for their outcomes, not for yours. So we can talk about Pavlov's dogs, and we can talk about, anchoring and collapsing anchors. We can talk about triggers. All those things are relevant here. If you've ever, smelled a perfume that your previous girlfriend wore, or smelled a cologne that somebody wore, or had an aversive reaction to that, you could clear that out. Or you could set it up for yourself. When you smell lavender, you feel more calming, partly because of the impact of the lavender on your nervous system, but partly because you're already feeling it. Coffee. Sometimes people will drink a cup of coffee and feel energized immediately, right? Just from the smell. That's an anchor because it actually takes the caffeine 20 minutes to hit their adrenal glands to produce the desired effect, but they have an association to it. So just smelling it sort of wakes them up. And that's an association. That's an anchor. Real estate agents use it. Sometimes really good real estate agents, are really skillful, artful, I don't know, manipulative. They will have the smell of fresh baked cookies, or like Thanksgiving dinner for an open house. And I heard the last time I did this training last year, somebody told me that they actually have a spray for like fresh baked cookies. I think it would be smarter to have the cookies there, chocolate chip cookies, or actually have a turkey baking in the oven. Like, that would be amazing. I wouldn't use a spray, but they're trying to trigger that anchor. The most elegant example I have ever seen was Lexus did a series of commercials around exhilaration. And my favorite commercial, which I tried to find, and I will find for you because I have it posted somewhere in Slack for the last training. They go through a series of experiences, and what they do is they rev the motor at the same time. So it opens with a woman just sort of like bouncing off the balls of her feet in front of a large white canvas, and she runs a red stripe across it, starting her painting, and they rev the engine. And then there's two teenagers like on a couch, and they touch each other's hands for the first time, and you can tell they're nervous, and they rev the engine. Then there's somebody who's involved in, I forget what they call it. It's not hang gliding, but when you, like, whatever, it's an extreme sport where you have the flaps, and you with the helmet anyway, it's like hang gliding, but without the aluminum tubing structure, and they rev the engine. There's a woman who's taking photographs of wildlife. There's a little girl who she's looking at a tiger behind glass in a zoo, and the tiger roars, but instead of the roar, you hear the rev of the engine. Fantastic. They go through all the exhilarating human experiences that people might have. There's like 6 of them in this one commercial, and they rev the engine, and then they show the car, and they rev the engine. That's anchoring. It's producing an exhilarating feeling for you, right? What's really awesome about Lexus was they broke down how they're using this to essentially produce the feelings of exhilaration, and how they tuned the engine even to produce the same kind of emotional response in humans. It's amazing. It's a very clear, very honest, very open breakdown of it. But this happens all the time. Commercials are the easiest example. You know, bikinis, hot guys, beer. What does that have to do with it? Or people are having fun shooting pool, or whatever it is that they do. And then I could give you a dozen other examples. Commercials are the easiest ones to point out, like, yeah, they're totally manipulating you in various ways, and they're building in an association. We can also use this, though, to help to heal people. But there's a couple reasons that, one, we go into there's a full segment in the training around anchoring, so that you can also collapse anchor. So if somebody has a negative association, let's say they, for instance, my mother, who used to be physically abused by my father, who, blew his brains out 25 years ago, but he would send her, which you all know from listening to my story. And they hadn't, again, she left him when I was 5 years old. So this is 47 years ago. But before that, when he would abuse her, he would the next day send her flowers. When she got remarried to my stepfather, who's a lovely man, 35 years ago, he couldn't send her flowers because it would anchor her to the abuse. And so she would have a trauma response. We can very easily collapse that response so it no longer affects her or them or our clients, but also just being aware of this for ourselves. In addition, we also go into a whole weekend of language patterns and hypnotic language patterns so that you can be aware of how we're influencing each other with language all the time. And you can be sure that you're only influencing people in an ethical manner. And also, you get to safeguard yourself from people who are influencing you with leverage techniques or language. And it gives you the ability to be like, oh, I see what you're doing. No, thank you. And you get to have that mastery over your own experience. But also you get to realize how much you're influencing people, whether you like to admit it or not, all the time. So you become more conscious of your interactions, and you can make sure you're only doing it in service of their outcomes or doing it ethically. And that in doing so, you both give yourself freedom and choice, and you give others freedom and choice. And that's really what this is about, right? Like if you're not working in transformation, evolution, and development to give people more freedom and choice, what are we doing it for, right? So that's just one snippet of, that's 2 days of a 14-day training, those two things, anchoring and hypnotic language patterns. And of course, message me if you're interested in seeing if the course is a fit for you, or if you're a fit for the course. It begins in 6 weeks' time. You know how to reach me. And thank you for listening. It doesn't matter to me if we ever talk again or not, or we ever even interact or not. What matters to me is that somehow I made a difference in your life. And maybe this has you think about commercials in a different way. Or maybe you end up being in this 7-month training and you produce even greater change in the world. Give people more freedom around you and give yourself more freedom. All right.